There's a saying, you are what you eat. It also may be true that you are what you write.
I love when I've solved something.
How we put pen to paper can be quite revealing, a revelation for Beverley East during an interview for a headhunting job years ago.
I filled in the application, I wrote a full page of handwriting. That sample was analyzed, and out of 611 people, I was one of the people chosen for the job.
Why? Turned out her secret sauce showed in her scrawls.
I'd managed to hide some of these parts about me. I am not a good team player. I like to do everything by myself. I work better, I'm more productive, and all these things came out in the report.
This kind of analysis is the small selective world of graphology, the study of handwriting to analyze a person's character. The field has a history dating back to the 1800s. The ancient Chinese and Greek philosopher Aristotle recognized that handwriting can be quite telling.
I felt that the X's were written by a younger person. Elderly people wouldn't have had this little kick at the end here.
East now joining their ranks as a modern-day trailblazer in the industry, recognizing that handwriting is brainwriting and frozen body language. It's slants, strokes, and spaces, providing a window to the soul.
Scientifically, it's proven that it's 80%, 90% accurate.
Though some dismiss the field as pseudoscience, others are open to the idea, particularly single women looking for Mr. Right.
Women would come up to me and say, I met this man in Barbados, what can you tell me?
Turns out a lot. Do the horizontal bars on his T's point downward? You could be looking at Mr. Domineering. Large loops in his G's and Y's might have a Mr. Extravagant on your hands. These pointers packing the pages of East's book, Finding Mr. Right, a new slant on selecting the perfect mate.
How they process information, how they communicate, level of integrity.
More than 20 years ago, East was the only woman in the world and woman of color to qualify for and practice in both areas of handwriting expertise. Not just graphology, but also QDE, or Question Document Examination, using forensics to examine documents potentially disputed in a court of law.
It's old boys network. For the longest time, it was hard to even get in. But then once I was in, all the doors were shut.
Hard for women, but also difficult as a discipline. It requires years of training, focusing on excruciating attention to detail. The field of QDE comes with high stakes, determining whether writing and signatures are forged on official documents, sometimes revealing sinister intentions.
People will send in death certificates from other states, false death certificates to show that they lost somebody in 9/11, which I just think is just the worst thing ever.
East also has expertise working in the Caribbean, including her native country of Jamaica.
I said we have Usain Bolt and we have fraud. Caribbean fraud is totally different from American fraud or anywhere else in the world.
How so?
It's more complex, it's more sophisticated, it's harder to identify.
For one, there, the letter X can be counted as a signature on an official document.
I've had to been able to identify what is a real X and what is a fake X.
My goodness.
And it's just two strokes.
East explains how it sometimes comes down to the force of a pen or the slope of the slant.
When somebody is ill and they're frail, that pressure diminishes on the paper.
And as expected in financial fraud, East often has to play the numbers game.
The biggest number that someone always tries to change on a check is the 3, because they can make it into an 8.
Digging under the layers, sometimes unearthing her own inner emotions.
One young man, when I looked at the documents, was the same age as my own son. And he was murdered because he saw too much. And I lost that case and I cried for 3-4 days.
Those feelings sometimes give way to concern over the future of her field.
When I look at my colleagues, we're all in our late 60s, nearly 70. I know I don't look like I'm nearly 70.
Not at all. Not at all.
But we're all around about my age, and they're all retiring, and I'm like, well, who's filling the gap?
For now, East is still at it, her passion for penmanship still making her mark.
How could you not be fascinated with this subject? How could you not?
Frances Coe, CGTN, Washington.